Good evening or grand rising, everyone. How are you doing? My name is MammyAfrika. You are tuned into Real Talk, Reshaping Motherhood, coming to you from Power to Our Mothers Foundation Africa in collaboration with Speak Up and Empower and Speak Up and Empower Africa. If you're not familiar with Speak Up and Empower, that is a online, heart-centered community which is focused on building businesses, communities, relationships, any structure that will enable us to live or create and live our dreams. And if you're here with us for the first time to Power to Our Mothers Foundation Africa, Power to Our Mothers Foundation Africa works with mothers and mother figures, aka women and girls, to empower themselves on multiple levels, practically, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because we know that empowering women, empowering mothers and mother figures empowers everyone. So we have different angles from which we do that. If this is your first time joining the broadcast, please do take a few seconds just to follow or subscribe to the platform on which you are seeing this broadcast. Share it to one other person and let me know where in the world are you joining me from. That would be really helpful. It's always good to know who we are connected with virtually, especially now we can't be so connected physically. So today's Real Talk Reshaping Motherhood. I was to be hosting my guest, who goes by the name of MammyAfrika. Unfortunately, Ms. MammyAfrika is unable to join us today due to some unforeseen logistical issues. So this will be just a short chat with yours truly, Naamele Santiamar. And we were going to be looking at the challenges of the 21st century mother. Now, it depends what you consider the 21st century mother to be. I assume that, it's the mothers who we are here now, being in the 21st century. And the challenges, are they are they not endless? I can think of many. Um, in some shape or form, we are supposed to be in a new era. Things are very advanced, sophisticated. We have new tech and all sorts. And sometimes I think in our excitement to embrace what's new, what's modern, what's current, we often think about we forget to think about what have those things come to replace. The things that we can refer to as home comforts or conveniences, are they really helping us or are they hindering us? So when I was growing up, we had the resources we had for learning were things like Encyclopedia Britannica, so you actually have these books in your house, in your home. We were fortunate to have them in our home. And, when we have our homework, we trot off to and look through those, discuss it with our mother who was raising us, and get on with our homework. Now we do, or some do have access to the internet, whether they're fortunate enough to have a laptop, a desktop, access to a tablet or a phone. We have all these gadgets that enable us to be connected with the world, enable us to access information at like almost warp speed, so we have access to much more information than we used to. Which can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing in the sense that it can be overwhelming because we now have access to so much information. What information do we know to trust? So when, our children come to us at whatever age and they ask us various questions and we're encouraging them and we say, oh, do your research, you can look here, and they come back with a result, it's sometimes very difficult for us to say, actually, yes, this is true, or this is not correct, because we have a wealth of information and the sources can be conflicting. So that can actually make our jobs as parents and particularly as mothers more challenging. I would say more challenging. We also are in a world pandemic at the moment. whatever you view that to be. The world isn't, we are not living in the world as we used to. And in some areas, in some places in the world, we are locked down. We are restricted with our movements and things like that. So a lot of parents have experienced, um, have reported, the struggle they have had. Me too. When I was back in the UK, when the schools were closed down and the children had to be at home, and we had to homeschool them. Just suddenly know how to do that, but homeschool them whilst some of us were also working, and so trying to juggle that. There were reports of and concerned about the amount of time that children then had access to their devices. So on the one hand, you don't want them to have too much access to the devices, but on the other hand, you have work to do, which is contributing to bringing in the income that the family needs to survive. So we had that challenge. And then, having to deal with our children actually getting addicted to these devices. When we say, okay, it's time to get off, they don't want to get off, and that becomes a whole drama. So these are things that some experienced before, but I think many more experienced because of the circumstances of having to be shut in the house for so long, and parents have to be working whilst the children are at home and not able to do other things with them other than them being on their devices. So that really has been a challenge. I've seen numerous commentary and posts and things on social media, mothers and fathers, just at their wits' end because they don't know how to stop their children from being on these devices. And you can't blame children. You can't blame them for becoming addicted or not knowing what else to do when actually probably a lot of them would just like to be outside, be free to do what they want without being under the surveillance of their parents. But depending what country you are in, let's just say it could have been. Thank you very much, QRDNK, for your comments. Thanks for the good blessings to us in Ghana. I was apologizing to the audience before that my guest, MammyAfrika, could not join us today, but hopefully we will have her here on another occasion to talk about the challenges of the 21st century mother. And for me, the fact that we do have things that are supposed to make our lives more easy, we can talk basic things. As much as I would say that a woman's role is not confined to the kitchen or necessarily the home, we have all these gadgets, these appliances, and things that are supposed to be more convenient, give us more time to do what we would like in our day. But then the question becomes, okay, what are we not now learning? Because we have all these machines. There was talk and commentary previously about the fact that children at school, they are losing their level of manual dexterity, like how to move their fingers, because as opposed to when I was at school and we literally sat down and everything was, with a notebook or paper and you're always writing or drawing. Most of them, they used to, of course, they used to do some writing at school or tablet where they're using their thumbs a lot. And so instead of hearing of things like tennis elbow, from people playing too much sport, there literally would be complaints and health concerns that children's fingers and gamers as well, you spend too much time on a phone or a tablet, that they actually have pain in those ligaments, and they actually cannot grasp like a pencil or any of these small things. They can't grasp and move them like they used to because we've become so used to using gadgets. So I think with everything there is a pro and a con, and for each family, it's got to be whatever works for you, whatever works for you. Um, the last thing that I would say in terms of us perhaps having access to too much information now, thanks to the internet and the various gadgets, is especially with older children, the kind of conversations that perhaps we have with the children now. Obviously, there's other information out there, and basically, children can just go and pull out their own sources, and come back and challenge what it is that you're saying. So I'm sure there are a lot more debates about what actually is the truth, what is the correct information, what's not the correct information, and that adds on to the challenge, because already we know that children, they are each unique, they're individuals, they don't come with a manual, and then on top of that we have all these other influences from social media or not regular media, but lots of media is the point, lots of media. And as I said, there are pros to having access to that information, but also cons, and even the adults are struggling as to how we shut ourselves down from these gadgets and just live, as in be human beings, not stuck on something that is going to be plugged into a wall or plugged into some power source, and actually be out there living real life, breathing fresh air. How do we go back to that and not 24/7 be literally hooked up or plugged into something? Thank you very much for sharing me up on WhatsApp. QR at the DNK. But yes, I'm not going to be too long-winded today. I was standing in and just wanted to take the time to greet you all and thank you for joining me briefly today. And yeah, have a think about perhaps how the challenges of parenthood, and we are talking about motherhood, have changed, over the period of time as we advance, as we get more sophisticated. How have they changed? What has actually been introduced to make our lives more easy? And is easy always the best thing? Is giving us greater comfort and greater convenience, is that the best thing? And I ask that question because, sometimes I think our children get a hard rap. They get a they have difficulty because they're told that they're lazy, this, that, and the other, but they have not lived the way that their parents have lived. So they have not acquired certain skills. And sometimes I think we just expect them to know things without them having been able to develop those skills. Um, so yeah, I think it can be hard on them as well. I agree. Finding the right information can be a challenge these days. Knowing how to use the media is important. Yeah, and knowing what media to go to, because we don't only have one media. The Depending what angle you're coming from, the plus of having access to the internet is that there are so many more entrepreneurs. People can get their voice out there in a way they couldn't before, at least virtually, which means on the one hand, it makes the world a much smaller place because you can reach more people. Um, but then if you're reaching more people with information that's harmful, is that a good thing? So yeah, I leave you with that. Do have a think. How have the different developments that we have had over the last 10, 20, 30 years, how have those developments improved or made motherhood easier? And to what extent have they actually added to the challenges that we already have of dealing with actually, they don't have to be young. Our children, they could be uh, minor children or adult children, and still there are issues there. So again, thank you for joining me today. Next week we will be back at 6 p.m. GMT with my next guest, but I will definitely try and schedule MammyAfrika back to join us so we can have a proper two-way conversation or three-way conversation as opposed to my monologue for this evening. But wherever you are, stay safe, stay well, and see you next week. I'm MammyAfrika signing off. Take care.